Well, hello with Gratitude Matt listeners. Bill Moran here. I have exciting news and I have a call to action. Before we play this wonderful episode of Matt Moran and his meeting Bryce Steele in the waiting room at Dana-Farber, we have a call to action. We would like you to support those that are battling cancer and help them find the courage to be grateful. And one way to do that is by donating to the Matt Moran and Bryce Steele giving page at Dana-Farber. It's Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, P.O. Box 849168, Boston, Massachusetts, 02284. Or you can donate by phone at 1-800-525-4669. So without further ado, I'm going to let you listen to the inspiring story of how Matt and Bryce met and formed a friendship that inspired each of them to find the courage to be grateful. Thank you, and Godspeed. Well, hello with Gratitude Matt listeners. My name is Bill Moran, and I'm Matt's older brother. And today I will be your host for our With Gratitude Matt show. With Gratitude Matt is a place people can come to find the courage to be grateful, regardless of how powerful the storm is. Matt's goal was to reach and inspire people to practice gratitude on a regular basis. As you know, Matt passed away this past August. Matt's wife, Mary, and the entire Moran family appreciate all your love, prayers, support, and generosity. We are so grateful and blessed to have such a supporting, caring, and loving community. I'm humbled and honored to be here today with our guest, Bryce Steele. Hello, Bryce. Welcome.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Bryce is a student athlete at Boston College, where he's working towards his degree in communications and entrepreneurship. Bryce is a linebacker for the Boston College Eagles. Bryce is the son of two loving parents, Nicole and Wendell Steele. He attended high school in his hometown of Raleigh, North Carolina, and through his outstanding play on the football field, his hard work, skill, athleticism, and academic performance, he earned wide praise and was recognized as one of the country's top recruits at safety and at linebacker. And then at 17, Bryce's path changed. God had a different plan for him. And Bryce, first of all, welcome to the show. And why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your family and where you grew up?
Sure. Well, first off, I just want to, thank you for having me here today. Thank you for, allowing me to take part in something so special. So yeah, like you were saying, I'm originally from Raleigh, North Carolina. My mom is from D.C. My dad's from a small town in North Carolina called Asheboro. And, I've lived here all my life, except for those about 2.5 years where I did attend boarding school in Alexandria, Virginia, before returning back to North Carolina to graduate. I come from a really supportive and God-loving family. And, this journey that I'm about to share with you I would have never been able to do it without them. So
that's great. Well, I'm so glad that you're here today, and we'll kind of get into, so at age 17, you were diagnosed with cancer, right, Bryce?
Yes, sir.
And so what did that mean for you're a young man, you're a teenager. What did that mean for your trajectory as an athlete? And first of all, how did you deal with that diagnosis?
Yeah. So it was September of 2019. I was preparing for my junior year of high school football. And, I was coming off of a hardworking, successful summer where I was blessed to receive, scholarship offers from some big name colleges, schools like Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, Tennessee, just to name a few. And within that first week of my high school preseason, I began experiencing some sharp pains in both my chest and my back. And, at the time I didn't really think much of it. So I just, kept on practicing, going through my days as if nothing was wrong. And about a week later, the pain just became kind of unbearable. It was kind of hard for me to, sit up straight in a chair. I was having a hard time sleeping at night just because the pain was just so uncomfortable. So, I mean, it was whenever I called my mom, because at the time I'm at Episcopal High School in Virginia, so I'm by myself. And, I'm calling my mom, telling her, the pain and everything that I'm going through. And she suggests that, I go to a nearby hospital and get an x-ray. And as I'm, getting ready to go to the hospital, she's already in her car. Like I said before, my parents were, supportive, and they were, 4 hours away. But as soon as I told them something was wrong with me, the way they got up to North Carolina to DC like this,
That's good.
That's love right there. And they were able to make it to the hospital there. And I got my x-ray, and obviously, x-rays only show bones and everything. So they couldn't tell what exactly it was. All they saw was a dark kind of shadow behind my heart. And since they couldn't really tell what it was, they suggested that I go get more tests done. So instead of, staying up in Alexandria, I decided to go back home and seek medical help at Duke Hospital in Durham, North Carolina. And there I received a CT scan, and that was when the CT scan came back with the results of, there being a mass that was growing behind my heart. Now, at the time, they couldn't really tell if it was malignant or benign. And so I ended up having a biopsy done. And that's when the results came back, and they diagnosed me with a rare form of cancer called thymoma. Thymoma is so everyone's born with a thymus gland, and around ages 14 to 15, your thymus gland kind of shrinks and becomes nothing almost. And instead of mine shrinking, mine became a tumor. And after I had the biopsy done, I quickly had surgery, within a turnaround of maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then I also, after surgery, they removed the mass. And I also had radiation treatment at Georgetown University from December of 2019 to January of 2020. And after that, I just continued to get, scans every 6 months before college.
Yeah. So at that point, we've got a whole pandemic in the middle of that too. So you're back January of 2020. You're back and you're getting treatment at Georgetown Medical Center. The health, was it improving, and were you getting back to strength?
Yeah. So luckily, my radiation treatment wasn't, super extensive on the body. I was able to continue working out throughout that radiation, even though I had to miss my junior year of high school football. My mindset was, all right, that's behind me. It's time to focus on the future, or focus on now and then the future. So, even though I was going through radiation, I was still preparing both physically and mentally for my senior year of high school football.
Right. And so you're training, working hard. And how did the recruiting process continue or change, or what happened there?
Yeah. So prior to me ultimately getting sick, like I mentioned before, I was blessed enough to have a lot of different colleges to choose from in my recruiting process. Unfortunately, when I did get sick and I missed my entire junior season, a lot of those schools kind of stopped recruiting me as hard. Understandably, I missed the whole season. And at the time, I wasn't really sharing with the public what my health issues were.
Okay.
So a lot of schools, were asking me hey, why haven't we seen any film from you, or, what's going on? What's happening? And I kind of just not kind of brushed them off, but at the time my focus was on my health.
Right.
And so I didn't really dive into detail with them as to, everything that I was going through. So, you know, college football, NFL football, it's all a business. If you can't perform, unfortunately, they move on to the next. And, unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. A lot of those schools that were recruiting me beforehand, a lot of them stopped recruiting me. And ultimately, before my senior season, my school list of, what at one time was 30 plus different schools dropped all the way down to maybe 3 or 4 different schools that I had to choose from.
Well, and ultimately you earned a football scholarship to Boston College, and things happened for you and not to you, and you signed a letter of intent and you joined the BC Eagles early in 21. Is that kind of the timeline? So you
Yes,
get up
sir.
there in January, kind of.
Yes, sir. I graduated from Millbrook High School in Raleigh, North Carolina early, and then I early enrolled. Excuse me. I early enrolled at Boston College in January of 2021.
Yeah, so you trained with the Eagles, and was that when you kind of transitioned from safety to linebacker, or how did that kind of happen?
Yeah. So I mean, all of high school, I was kind of looked at as like a bigger linebacker. I mean, a bigger safety. My apologies. And BC offered me. I had a couple scholarship offers from different schools. Some schools were wanting me to play safety. Some schools wanted me to play linebacker. Boston College wanted me to play linebacker, and I mean, after seeing how, for one, it's a prestigious university, and then also they've produced a lot of good, talent at linebacker specifically. So ultimately, even though earlier in my high school career, Boston College wasn't, on my mind at the time, after everything that I had gone through, I felt as though Boston College was the place for me.
That's awesome. I mean, well, so you get up there, you start taking care of business, and you're the fall of your first year at football season at Boston College, you earn significant playing time. You establish yourself on the field. You establish yourself off the field as a leader, and kind of describe that first season and what it meant to be, playing the game that you love and that you've worked so hard to be able to do.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned before, I early enrolled in January of 2021, and I was, still getting my scans, every 6 months at the time. And, May of 2021 rolls around. I get my scans, and this was the first time that my cancer had came back. And so at the time, I was still being seen at, Duke Hospital. So I had a surgery again in May 2021. And fortunately, I was able to, still get back in shape and be ready for my freshman season later on that year. Like you mentioned, I was blessed enough to play as a true freshman, which, now that I'm looking back on it, without God, that wouldn't have been possible.
No, I mean, you can't, go through what you did, and we'll talk a little bit about how your faith has been impacted by all this, but I kind of want to give the listeners kind of a little bit of a timeline of your career and the challenges that you faced throughout it. So, and I'm glad you interjected that, the spring of 21 and the surgery and what it meant and the work that you had to do to get back in there. Who helped you with that? Like, did mom or dad, we haven't mentioned your girlfriend Madison yet. We're 13 minutes into this, and Madison's not gotten a mention. So maybe we kind of begin with the family, and I call it your rope team.
Yeah.
You're buddies with Matthew Reevy. He's a teammate on your BC Eagles. Matthew's a Cincinnati kid, played at St. Xavier High School, and he's a teammate of yours. And his uncle, John Reevy, always calls it the rope team. And what I think of the rope team is like, if you're hanging over a cliff on a rope and you look up, who do you want to see up there on the other end of that rope? Well, for you, Bryce, who is that? Who do you want to see up there?
So first, most definitely my parents. My mom and my dad are probably two of my biggest inspirations in the world. just seeing how hard they work every day to provide for my brother and I, um, it's unmatched. And then next, my old head and strength and conditioning coach, Phil Matus, he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, but he also played a huge part in, helping me get back in shape, both, physically and mentally. And then also my trainer from North Carolina, Ian Walker as well. I've been training with him since I was around like 14 or 15 years old. And without at the time, I know you mentioned Maddie earlier. Unfortunately, me and Maddie were not together at that time. But
It's all good.
And then obviously my little brother as well. Can't count him out. I mean, really everybody had a huge impact in me, working every day, striving to get back into shape. Just constant support. Just telling me, because I mean, obviously there were days where I woke up and I just was not feeling like, working out, or my body was fatigued and I was just tired. And, they just kind of helped to remind me each and every day, like, this is your goal and this is what you need to do in order to reach that goal. So, I mean, it was pretty easy with the support system that I had.
That's beautiful, Bryce. And I'm so, I it's not lost on me the perspective that you have as a young man in the spring of your, really before your first full college football season, what you had to endure, get ready to get on the field, and those people that helped you. Wow, what an inspiration. And I'm so, so I kind of fast forward through that first season, but it was a great season, and you get out there, and what did it mean to kind of like, finally suit up and, step on the field and get some action?
Yeah, I mean, words can't even describe it, honestly. In high school, I made a lot of friends, a lot of teammates of mine, went on and play Power 5 football. Not all of them were able to play as a true freshman. And so for me to have gone through what I had gone through with my health and then still manage to see the field as a, 18, 19-year-old kid, like I mentioned before, without God and my family, I don't think I would have been able to do it.
Right. So you have that great season, and then you move on to the off season, and I'm hopeful, but you can tell the story. So I'm hopeful that, you continue to get better from a sense of the football standpoint, improving, learning, you adapt to your academics, and things are on a good path at that point, right? And you're getting ready for year number 2, right?
Yep.
So year number 2 comes around on the field, and it's another successful season. I mean, you establish yourself as a starter, a leader on the field, and what did that mean to you to increase your status on the team and your contribution to the team?
Yeah, I mean, it meant a lot. When I was younger, I felt like I was a pretty sheltered kid. Even when I was playing on, little league Pop Warner teams for football, when I was basketball or baseball, I was always kind of a keep to myself kid. And I would try to always lead by example rather than being a vocal leader. And my sophomore year, before my sophomore season, I told myself, all right, like, what are obviously you have some physical goals that you want to set for yourself on the field, whether or not it's, a certain amount of tackles, a certain amount of TFLs or whatnot, but what are some mental goals that you really want to focus on? And one of those goals that I really tried to hone in on in the off season and leading up to the season was being more of a vocal leader. Obviously I realized that, everyone at the next level, me in the NFL, you have to set yourself aside some way, shape, or form. Everyone's big, strong, fast. And if you're able to show coaches that, you have a good football IQ, or, you're a vocal leader and you're able to lead the team and grab guys' attention and make the people around you better, not only will you be making the team better, but, you'll be winning games. Everybody's happy.
And that's a lot of what you were able to do, your second year at BC. And then you go into the off season. So kind of timeline, it's early part of 2023. And why don't you kind of, the next thing you know, you're sitting in the waiting room and you meet two guys from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
and now you're doing a podcast. So
Yeah.
I know we kind of fast forward, but what brought you to Dana-Farber that May day in 2023?
Yeah. So, kind of going back a year, my cancer had came back once again in 2022, and at the time I was still being seen at Duke Hospital, and Duke Hospital felt as though they couldn't help me in the way that they had hoped for, and so they suggested that I go to Dana-Farber up in Massachusetts, which in a way worked out because I was already at Boston College at the time. And so once I was at Dana-Farber, they recommended that instead of like how Duke was having me get scanned every 6 months, Dana-Farber recommended that I get scanned every 3 months. And so whenever I met you and Matt, I was just in there for my 3-month annual CT checkup.
Yeah. So I kind of want to set the stage a little bit for the listeners. So, and bear with me here, Bryce. So Matt and I were there. Matt was having, he was seeing his cancer treatment team, Dr. McGregor and the whole medical team, and he was having some trouble with a lesion on the low back, and it was causing some problems with getting around. So he was kind of walking with a limp a little bit, and so we were there, and that's the only reason I was there is because Matt just kind of felt like he needed somebody there just to, if he needed an errand run or something like that, I would be there, and I was happy to be there. Well, we go back, we meet with Dr. McGregor, and he didn't get. It wasn't a great visit that day. It was a tough day. He got some tough news, and earlier we saw you, and and Matt and I we're huge sports fans. We're always, and we have an affinity towards Boston College. I mean, by the way, Bryce, you are the third linebacker that has been on with Gratitude Matt. So the first was one of Matt's high school classmates and former BC linebacker John Ravenna. The second is probably a little bit more widely known to our listeners, Luke Kuechly. Luke was a BC standout and is going to be inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. So, and hopefully, who knows, maybe Canton someday. But so you're the third. So we're happy. We have a little tradition, and we're happy to have you. But so we saw you, and you have this, this gray T-shirt on. It says BC football, Eagles, and then you're just for whatever reason, I remember you carrying a little backpack, and we're like, man, what is this guy doing here? He's like the picture of health. He looks like he just came off the practice field. And so everybody has their journey and their story, and I'm gonna let you tell yours a little bit more here in a second. But I wanted to set this up. So then we come out, and I don't see you. I'm kind of, be honest with you, Bryce, that was a tough day for me emotionally. I'm, with my brother, and things aren't going well. And so I excuse myself. I go to the restroom and kind of gather myself, wipe some tears out of my eyes, and I walk out. And the next thing I know, you and Matt are talking like you're old friends.
Yeah.
And it was just beautiful. So I'll let you kind of pick up from there. So you and Matt are chatting, and then kind of how did that come about? You had a lot going on.
But yeah, I mean, I was just sitting in the waiting room. Like I mentioned before, I was, waiting to get the results back, or getting a CT scan, waiting to get the results back and meet with my oncologist. And I knew that I was going to be there because, the appointments take all day. So, I had brought my backpack because I was going to try to get some schoolwork done, study some film, just try to be productive in my time there. And I was just sitting there, and next thing Matt walks up to me, and he's just asking me if I went to BC. We just start talking, so I'm just telling him, I play football at Boston College, and then he kind of talks to me about how like his connects to Boston College and everything, and he's like, well, Matt Reevy. I was like, of course I know Matt Reevy. So it was like you said, even though it was for a short stint of time, we were talking as if we had known each other for forever, man. It was definitely a special moment, and I mean that day had more of an impact than you can imagine on me.
Yeah, it was. Well, and just so you know, Bryce, it meant the world to us and to Matt. And I know you guys exchanged phone numbers, or Matt got your phone number, and Matt and I went back. We were staying at a friend's place, and we went back, and he texted you and said, "Hey man, I hope everything's going well." And I was so touched. Matt shared this with me. You texted back, and you basically said the same thing, but you also said, Matt, you and your family are going to be in my prayers. And that was pretty powerful for you're dealing with your diagnosis, your scans, and things changed for you that day. And we'll get into how they changed a little bit. But you weren't thinking of yourself, you were thinking of other people. And that meant the world to Matt. I know that for sure. And so things did change, Bryce. What happens with the result of those scans?
Yeah. So the cancer returned for a third time, and this time it was a lot more aggressive than the first two times. At the time, I was training, getting ready for another my junior season, which in terms of the NFL, like that's like and for the NFL, you can play 3 years of college football before you try to go to the NFL. And so for me, I was looking at this year as my money year, if that makes sense.
I get it. No,
I was,
and that's
yeah. And so I get the results back. They tell me it came back more aggressive, and that I was gonna have to have surgery once again. And so being that I had already gone through this a couple times beforehand, when they told me you're gonna have to have surgery, I was like, all right, like let's just go ahead and get this over with so I can get back in the weight room, start training again, and get ready for my junior season. And that was when they told me basically like slow your roll. This surgery is going to be a little bit more invasive than the surgery that you had prior to. And so obviously I was listening to all the big words and terminology they were using at the time, but my mind was focused on, all right, I get my health is in one shape. Like, when can I get back on the field? that was my mindset. When can I get back on the field? When can I get back on the field? And that was when they told me, like, you won't be playing this season. And I just remember breaking down in tears because even though I had gone through this before, it had never, except for in high school, it had never taken me out for a full season. And the way that these doctors were describing this surgery and this procedure, they in a way made it seem like my body would never be the same, and that they weren't sure how far I would be able to continue my football progress. And so as a 20-year-old, at the time I was 20, at the time that was not at all what I wanted to hear as a young kid. Since I could throw a football, catch a football, it's been a dream of mine to play in the NFL. And so to hear doctors who are obviously really knowledgeable about this specific form of cancer tell you we're not sure if you're going to be able to achieve your goal, that was definitely a tough time for me. And I just remember
where did you Yeah, no, I appreciate that was beautiful. And I was just going to ask, where did you draw strength from? I mean, that is, I just want the listeners to think about that. I mean, it put themselves, and we can't even, it's almost unfathomable to do it, but where did you draw strength? Was it your faith and your family? What helped you get up in the morning?
So throughout this journey, I really feel as though my relationship with God was strengthened more than ever. I was really trying to dive into the Bible and really interpret it and try to figure out, like, because at first, when I was first diagnosed with cancer in 2019, I would call myself, back then, I would say that I was pretty young and immature. I would kind of question God and say, why me? And what I learned throughout the past 3 to 4 years is that, bad things happen to good people. And for a while, I thought that God was punishing me for, something that I had done prior to in my life. And, it took my mom, my dad, my pastor, and, a lot of support from family and friends to tell me, you're not a bad person. This isn't God punishing you. Like I just said, bad things happen to good people. And so, obviously, whenever these doctors told me, you're not going to be able to basically run the same way, breathe the same way. You're not going to be able to reach your full potential as far as athletically. I just really just dive into the Bible and just try to come up with something, not come up with something, but try to find something in the Bible that kind of blanked out everything that they were saying. And one scripture that I came across that really got me through this whole journey was Isaiah 54:17. And it reads, "No weapon formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn." And so I have a couple tattoos on my body, and this was actually my first tattoo that I got done. I don't really know how well you guys can see it.
And that's Isaiah 54:17.
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's so powerful. So that's with you every 24/7.
24/7. Anytime I get down on myself, or even when I was going throughout this whole journey, I would just literally look down at my arm, read it, and then I'd be good to go.
That's so powerful, man. That's just and for just, again, as a 20-year-old to take that path and that journey and strengthen yourself and restore your resolve to reach for your dreams. And man, wow. So kind of like the one thing, you've got family and friends, and we did refer to Maddie. Madison came into your life, right? She's your girlfriend, right?
Yes, sir.
So what does it mean to have her and your other friends support you on this journey?
Yeah. So when after I got re-diagnosed in May of 2023, the doctors, because obviously I was trying to tell doctors, if you were to listen to me in the doctor's office, as they're telling me everything, I was like, all right, they were saying, all right, this surgery is going to be, super invasive. We're going to take out so-and-so amount of your diaphragm. You're going to have to learn how to, rebreathe and run everything. I was like, all right, like, is there anything that we can do to make this surgery the least amount invasive possible? And they said that, I could try chemo. They're not, guaranteed if it's going to work or not, but, just to give it a shot to see if we could shrink it and make the surgery smaller. So I ended up doing a couple rounds of chemo. And that first round, that was a round that really knocked me off my feet for a couple of days. So Maddie and I, we lived together with our little dog Remy, and my mom, came up to visit me. Obviously, throughout this, both my parents came to visit me throughout this whole ordeal, And Maddie was especially supportive because, there were times where, I was waking up in the middle of the night throwing up. I didn't want to eat anything, just the typical side effects of chemotherapy. And, she was by my side throughout everything. She was staying over, handing me paper towels at 2:00 in the morning while I'm throwing up in the trash can. Asking me what I need, DoorDashing me stuff from Walgreens or DoorDashing me food. Just really being my support system, as well as both my parents too. But I mean, it's one thing to have, mom and dad taking care of you, but to have someone who, isn't, related to you doing the same thing, if not more, it really speaks volumes as to how big her heart is. And like I said, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to interrupt you, but that was really powerful. So you how many rounds of chemo did you have, Bryce?
So I had 2 rounds. Like I said, the first round that knocked me off my feet for a couple of days, mostly because I didn't really know what to expect from it. And also I kind of messed up, because they give you certain medication to take afterwards to kind of give you some energy because it really knocks you out. And I want to say I was bedridden for about 2 to 3 days. And then after that, even though I knew I wasn't going to play that upcoming season, I still wanted to work out and be around the team. So even though I was going through chemo, I was still waking up every day, going to workouts, doing the same workouts as the team. I might not have, always been in first place, but, I still managed to finish the workout. And it was, I knew I wasn't going to play that season, but it was just being around the guys, being around, my brothers, making me feel as though I was getting ready for the season, even though I knew I wasn't. That also, I think, had a huge factor in, me being able to push through. Because I'm like, in my mind, is like, okay, if I can get 1% better each and every day, that's me getting 1% closer to my goal.
So true. So then we kind of, you then have the surgery after the chemo then?
Yeah. So, and again, this is, nothing but God. I got 2 rounds of chemo and, I got some scans done just to see how much the chemo had done. And my oncologist was like, this is before they, of course, cut me open to actually see everything. But my oncologist was like, the chemo didn't really do much to cancer cells. We could try a different form of chemo or different type of chemo. But I mean, I'm not really sure that that's going to work either. I suggest that you just go ahead and, get the surgery. And so, I was like, all right, if they don't feel as though chemo is going to benefit me, I'm not going to put myself through, because essentially chemo is like poison in my eyes. Like it messes your body up. And so I was like, I'm not going to keep on putting my body through that if, doctors feel like it's not doing anything. So, I went ahead October 3rd, I had the procedure, and it turns out that the chemo actually did shrink, more cells than, my oncologist thought. And the surgery was less invasive than what they were describing to me earlier that year. And I mean, I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks. I had, like 5 or 6 chest tubes. I have like a scar probably like this long that runs all the way across my back here. It was definitely a tough couple weeks in the hospital. But I mean, like I said, my girlfriend was there every day. My parents were there every day. There was never a part throughout this entire journey where I felt alone.
So then you started to recover from the surgery, and kind of get us. That's, I guess, late 2023.
Yeah.
Where what else? Again, what else is going on in your life with respect to your athletic career, your academics, and all that? So where kind of paint a picture for the listeners on that timeline there.
Yeah. So between chemo and then me being in the hospital for my surgery, I missed a decent amount of school like that semester. And luckily all my teachers were really understanding of my situation, and I was able to make up all my work before the semester was over with, turn in all my assignments, pass all my courses despite missing almost half of the semester. And if you were to look at me the day that I left the hospital, I probably couldn't even walk maybe 10, 15 feet without being out of breath. Like that's how bad it was at one point. And now, I would say that I'm almost, 80, 85% back to, what I was at prior to my surgery. That goes as far as, strength, my wind, as far as being in shape and conditioning and everything. And like I said, none of this would have been possible without God. I mean, it's definitely been a long journey, but I feel like I've bounced back and proved those doctors wrong.
Well, Bryce, when we talked over the phone a short time ago, and I wanted you to come on and kind of tell your story, but it's your story, it's your journey, and I want to respect that, and we are, but I think it's such a powerful story, and it also shows what kind of man you are to be willing to share this with others. And you're not doing this for attention. You're not doing this for anything other than you want to help other people, and that's a beautiful thing. I was so impressed after I met you that, and my parents taught me a couple things, and they said, hey, if you met somebody and you were impressed by what they have done and what they're going to do, write them a note. And so I was so moved to write you a note, and word got back to me that you'd received the note, and I'll kind of let you take it from there as to what, and again, this is not about me. This is not about my note. It's just about what other people mean to other people. And we met for 10 minutes, man, and you're on a podcast now. And I wrote you a note, and what did all that mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, for one, obviously it was just nice to hear from you again. There was one phrase, obviously, the entire note was, really impactful to me, but there was one phrase that you wrote down, and it was how I never used my situation as an excuse, but I used it as motivation instead. And for me, that one, sentence alone, I can't even, describe like the impact that it had on me. I actually had the letter framed. It's right next to my bed on my dresser. And that way, every time I wake up in the morning, obviously I turn my phone alarm off, but that's the first thing I see is that letter. And that statement, every time I look at that letter that's framed, that's the phrase that, gets me started with my day each and every day. Because it's not like I want, like me coming on this podcast, like you mentioned before, like I'm not, coming on the podcast to talk about my situation, to have people have some form of pity for me or anything like that. That's not at all what I'm looking for. But it's more so to share my story, because I know for a fact that, I'm not the only, 17, 18, 19-year-old kid that, had, dreams of playing pro sports and was diagnosed with some form of, or some health condition that, doctors told them, your dream isn't going to be, like, you can't reach your dream because of whatever health condition you have. So my message, or my purpose for really sharing this story with everyone is that, regardless of what tough situation you're going through, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And so that's kind of how I viewed this entire situation. And also, I mean, as long as you have the right people in your corner, no matter the situation, you'll always be prosperous.
Yeah. Well, and you continue to be. So kind of like, so the plan, going forward is you're going to train, you're going to do the work, and you're going to earn an opportunity to get on the field for the Eagles, right?
Yes, sir. That's the plan.
Man, that's cool. Well, Florida State better be ready because number two's coming. Number two's coming.
Yes, sir.
So for our listeners, Bryce wears number 2. So I think you figured that out. But yeah, so one of the things, and I want to, and I really want to drive this home because I think it's important, and then we're getting close to wrapping up here, Bryce. But so Matt passed away, as everybody knows, and I was humbled and honored to speak at his funeral. And I spoke of his family, and I spoke of his loving and amazing wife, Mary, and their 2 beautiful and talented and loving daughters. And, Matt, I talked about how Matt loved to be a girl dad. And we talked about, his life and kind of took him through and what different people meant to him and everything. And Bryce, I got to tell you, man, I only told, and I spoke for a long time, that I can talk. I spoke for 11 minutes and I only told one story. And that was that I was, I didn't use you by name, but I mentioned you and Matt meeting and what that meant to Matt. And then I come to learn what that meeting has meant to you. And I spoke of that. And I just thought it captured the essence of what Matt was, but it also showed what a true champion you are. And so I just can't thank you enough for that. I'm a little, I don't want to talk about Christmas gifts, but Maddie did give you kind of a cool Christmas gift this year. What did she give you?
Yeah, so she knew how much that letter and specifically that phrase meant to me, that you wrote, and so she got me a pair of cleats and then had the phrase, never use my situation as an excuse but as motivation, printed out, and cursive, for me to wear. Well, I'm not going to wear them because obviously they mean more to me than just some normal cleats, but they're actually sitting in my locker right now at school. So every time the first thing I do, obviously, when I get to the facility is, grab my cubby, grab my stuff from the cubby, get changed. As soon as I open up my locker, they're the first thing there. And so that's kind of like my reminder, my why I do what I do every day is seeing those cleats in that statement.
Pretty cool. I'm glad that she came up with that clever idea.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that with us. And I know when you get out on the field, you give it your all. So, like I said, we're getting close to wrapping up here. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the listeners that we haven't really been able to discuss, about you, about your journey, about, how what this diagnosis has meant to you, but how you've prevailed and prospered beyond it through God and through your family?
Yeah. In my eyes, everything happens for a reason. And, even though it took me a while to see that, I am definitely a true believer of that now. And I mean, like I mentioned earlier, there's always going to be light at the end of the tunnel. So whatever tough situation you might be going through, eventually it'll come to an end. And as long as you have a good support system and, stay faithful to God, you can do anything you put your mind to.
Oh, that's beautiful, Bryce. And I think that's a good place to kind of wrap up our time here today, as much as I'd love to continue.
Yep.
And the friendship will continue.
Yes, sir.
This episode will end.
Yep.
So So as we close out today's show, I will encourage listeners to follow Bryce's career on and off the field. As you well can see, he's an impressive young man and really a true inspiration to everyone. And we will end today's show with Matt's closeout. He always reminded us to do 3 things every day to live life to the fullest. Find something that you're grateful in, regardless of how powerful the storm is. Be truly present to those you are with. Pay attention to what you're feeding your mind, body, and soul. Again, thank you to our guest, Bryce Steele. To our listeners, remember to subscribe to the show, share it with friends, and comment. With gratitude, Matt listeners, until next time, find the courage to be grateful. Godspeed, my friends.